Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Merkur Skindiver 225364. This watch is available from merkurwatchgroup.com for $129. You can use the discount code MERKURWATCH088 to get $20 discount, and that will reduce the price from $129 to $109, which is €94 respectively. So firstly, let's look at the hard shell travel case that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the watch comes in this camouflage patterned hard shell travel case, which has the Merkur text logo embossed on the top. I'm going to be critical of this because using camouflage would be appropriate for a hard shell travel case with a field watch, or alternatively an homage to a military issued piece, not a Skindiver inspired piece from the 1960s. It's a dive piece. So I think this would look better if it were plain black, but this is subjective. Some collectors might like the camouflage print. Now, with regards to the details, you can see very good attention to detail because on the zip pull we have the Merkur text logo embossed, which is good. I'll show you the interior. The underside of the lid, we have an elasticated web pocket which houses the items I'll show you, and in the base of the hard shell travel case we have a foam cutout panel in the shape of a watch, and this does a good job of protecting the watch in shipping from any damage. So it's good quality, and Merkur deserve credit here because they could have taken the less expensive default option of just using a cardboard watch box at this price point of $109 or €94, but this hard shell travel case is good quality and aesthetically pleasing. With regards to the items that come with the piece, this is the owner's instruction manual, clear concise diagrams. The instructions are in English and it details the operation of the movement used, which is the Merkur Caliber M01D manual wind. As you can see, it's a thick owner's instruction manual because it's translated into a plethora of foreign languages and it is well written. One also gets this Team Merkur branded microfiber polishing cloth. I always think it's a nice touch to get a branded microfiber polishing cloth irrespective of the price point of a piece. And lastly, one also gets this Join Us Watch Designer leaflet, as you can see, and it invites you to email Team Merkur. So the contact email is bd@merkurwatch.com. So you can design your own watch, and they offer 4 different styles of watches: dress chronograph, vintage military, sporty chronograph, and retro. So for example, you can email Merkur Watch Group your logo or watch design, and they will print it on the dial of one of these 4 watches and produce a custom made watch for you. And as you can see, it has the contact email if you want to do that. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, we have a 38mm case diameter, we have a lug-to-lug measurement of 44.8mm, a thickness of 13.5mm, and a lug width of 20mm. The canvas fabric strap is made from nylon and it's straight and parallel, doesn't taper, so 20mm at the lugs and 20mm at the buckle and tang. Solid 316L grade stainless steel buckle and tang, brush satin finish on the top side, underside and flanks, no sharp edges, doesn't have sharp corners, but however we've got a clear cost cutting measure and I'm going to be critical of it at this $109 or €94 price point. It's unsigned. I'd like to see the buckle signed with Merkur engraved because that would further enhance the piece. We have 2 stainless steel keepers which are fixed, they don't slide, rather like NATO keepers, and they are well finished, brush satin finish which complements the buckle and tang, good heavy gauge to the keepers and also the buckle and tang. So this piece, the Skindiver 225364, is clearly inspired by 1960s Skindivers, and in the centre of the dial you can see it features a decompression table. So decompression tables are in meters and also feet, and they were used by saturation divers in the 1960s, but of course today in 2025 they've now become obsolete because in reality modern day saturation divers use dive computers rather than decompression tables on their watches. So this really is nostalgia and it's just inspiration from Skindivers from the 1960s. We have a boxed crystal. Now, you might think this is sapphire crystal with AR coating, but it's not. It's actually made from K1 hardened glass. So to clarify, K1 hardened glass is really a compromise between mineral crystal and sapphire crystal respectively. It's in between the two because K1 hardened glass is harder and more scratch resistant than mineral crystal or acrylic, which is good. Originally Skindivers from the 1960s, which this is inspired by, they used acrylic crystals, and of course they were soft and prone to being scuffed and scratched, so it's good it uses a harder material. I personally would prefer to see sapphire crystal at this price point with clear AR coating on the underside, but the K1 hardened glass does have excellent clarity, and as you can see, It has clear AR coating on the underside, and the clear anti-reflective coating does an excellent job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of the boxed top hat K1 hardened glass crystal. So it's hard and scratch resistant, but not as hard and scratch resistant as sapphire crystal, and that's something to note. So as I've detailed, in the centre we have the decompression table, and around the circumference we have minute ticks on the rotating bezel. So 2 crowns are on the right hand flank. The top crown is a screw down crown, and that operates the inner rotating bezel, which is bidirectional. It's friction based, it doesn't click. That's something to note if you like ratcheting mechanisms. The lower crown operates the hands for setting the time. However, it's a push-pull crown. So to clarify, top crown operates the bezel. That is a screw down crown providing 100 meters of hermetic seal. However, the lower crown is a push-pull crown. I think Merkur have missed an opportunity here. They should have made both of the crowns, the one for the bezel and also the one for setting the time, both screw down crowns. That would easily have made this a 200 meter water resistant piece, because it does have a thick enough boxed K1 hardened glass crystal, and it also does have a thick enough stainless steel screw down case back. So a screw down case back, 2mm thick mineral K1 hardened glass crystal, and also screw down crowns should provide 200 meters. This piece is only 100 meters, which is a disappointment at this price point. So let's test the crown execution. So first we'll test the screw down bezel crown. So one unscrews it, does feel silky smooth, minimal number of turns, and when it's fully unscrewed it begins to rotate the inner rotating bezel. So as I've detailed, it's bidirectional rather than unidirectional as per 120 click external bezel, and it feels smooth. It's friction based. It does have heavy friction, so it feels smooth. It doesn't feel rough or gritty, which is good, and it doesn't click. Some inner rotating bezels have a ratcheting mechanism. They click and therefore they don't have backplay. This one is bidirectional, rotates both clockwise and anti-clockwise, and it does have a lot of friction. So the benefit of it having the friction is it's not going to accidentally move out of position. The other benefit of having a screw down crown rather than a push-pull crown to operate the bezel is when you rub against the crown, once it's set, it's not going to accidentally move the inner rotating bezel out of position. So it's good they've used a screw down crown for the bezel. Feels smooth all the way through the 360 degrees rotation, both clockwise and anti-clockwise. And as it's bidirectional, we don't need to check for backplay, but there's a good response. When you rotate the crown, there's an immediate response. If you look at the triangle, you can see it immediately moves. So when you rotate the crown clockwise and anti-clockwise, there isn't a lot of backplay. One doesn't have to take up a lot of slack in the gearing, so it feels nice and tight. I like it. So one can easily align it correctly because it's bidirectional. Let's check pushing it back down. So pushing it down fully, and then you screw down the crown. Immediate thread pickup. So perfect interface between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. 100 meters is okay, but I would prefer to see 200 meters at this price point, and that would make it a more credible dive piece. So let's test the lower crown. Solid 316L grade stainless steel crown, coin edge finish, nice large chamfer which deletes the sharp tips to the coin edge teeth. Both of the crowns are signed with the Merkur Watch Group M emblem, as you can see, and matte B blasted background, and the Merkur logo emblem is silver, so they've done a very good job of mirror polishing it. No sharp edges to the crowns, they're correctly proportioned. So lower crown for setting the time is just the push-pull crown, and you pull it out fully to the first click, which is the final click, because the Merkur caliber M01D, which is an in-house caliber made by Merkur, doesn't have a date complication. So when it's closed, as it's a push-pull crown rather than a screw-down crown, you can manually wind it. 40 full clockwise turns is enough to fully wind the Merkur caliber M01D to its maximum 42-hour power reserve. So pulling it out to the first click is the final click, and we're now in the time setting position. Now, you can see the white contrasting second hand continues to sweep around the dial. This is the main negative I want you to be mindful of with the Merkur caliber M01D. It's a manual wind movement, so it's mechanical rather than an automatic with a rotor. The negative is it does not hack. So we're now in the time setting position. Normally that would hack a movement, but if you look at the second hand, you can see it continues to run. So one cannot set the time precisely to the second. That is just a characteristic of the M01D one has to live with. So we're now in the time setting position. Does have a lot of friction in the gearing. It's a 17 joule movement, and to put it into perspective, it feels heavier in terms of resistance than the gearing to a Seiko NH35A, which you'll all be familiar with, or a Miyota 9015. So one really has to grip the crown firmly with one's index finger and thumb with purchase and give it a good hard turn clockwise and anti-clockwise to set the time. So it does have a lot of friction, heavier friction than an NH35A, and one has to become accustomed to it. Now, it doesn't have a lot of backplay, that's good. So when you rotate the lower crown to set the time, when you rotate it clockwise and anti-clockwise, there's an almost immediate response to the baton minute hand. The minute hand and also the hour hand are black and white. I think they're under proportion, they're undersized, because I appreciate that this is on a Mars 2 Skindivers from the 1960s, and they did have a decompression table in the centre, and in the centre section, which is a black circle, they did have black sections, so that's correct. But with decompression table saturation divers or Skindiver pieces, the minute hand should extend all the way to the minute ticks on the bezel or the chapter ring. You can see this minute hand is too short because it doesn't extend all the way to the minute ticks on the chapter ring, and that's the purpose of a dive piece. The bezel is meant to be used against the minute hand to register and therefore set the minute. But you can see the second hand looks too short. The hour hand is okay. It is more difficult to read the time because it's quite short and stubby. I think they should make the hands longer, both the hour and minute hand. That would improve the legibility. The other problem is the tips of them are white, but that really doesn't contrast very well with the decompression table, as you can see, because it does have white sections. I think had they used different coloured hands or alternatively made the hands fully black in the outline, that would make them easier to read, because white hands don't really contrast with the decompression table in the centre of the dial very well. The short hour hand isn't very legible. The white contrasting second hand is long enough to extend nearly to the minute ticks on the inner rotating bezel, so that's okay, but I think they just should have made the hands wider and also longer. So in the time setting position, feels smooth, clockwise and anti-clockwise, minimal backplay to it, does feel okay to set the time, but I just think the hands are undersized. Is a lot of friction, but you can get accustomed to it. Pushing it back in reinstates the 100 meters of hermetic seal, so it works okay. It's just disappointing they've missed the opportunity of making the second crown a screw down crown like the top crown, because they are capable of doing it. So I'll show you the case back. Solid 316L grade stainless steel case back, and it's engraved with high definition engraving with a Merkur Watch Group line emblem, so good quality engraving. Underneath it also says Peking, because Merkur watches are made in Peking in China, and we've also got the coordinates of Merkur Watch Group, and it is engraved to a good standard. It does add interest to the case back. And the milled slots are deburred and chamfered very well. Concentric CNC lathe tool machining to the case back beneath the engraving, and it is low profile. And that's the benefit of this being a manual wind mechanical movement rather than an automatic with a rotor. Doesn't need additional clearance beneath the screw down case back for a rotor, and therefore the centre section is flat. So this piece is quite thick, it's 13.5, but that's largely due to the 2mm thick K1 hardened glass crystal, which does give it a vintage aesthetic. But the actual head of the piece and the case back are low profile, and therefore it does sit very snug to the wrist. Case back is very comfortable. The engraving doesn't feel sharp or rough, so it doesn't irritate the wrist. So well finished, well executed. It's just disappointing this piece is only rated to 100 meters, because a screw down solid stainless steel case back should provide 200 meters of hermetic seal. The underside to the head of the piece is very well finished. The tips of the lugs have bevels which deburr and remove the sharp edges and the sharp corners, which is good. The undercuts to the flanks are deburred and chamfered very well. Flawless mirror polishing to the underside to the head of the piece. The case is solid 316L grade stainless steel. Concentric CNC lathe tool machining to the top surface of the lugs, which is very aesthetically pleasing, and that contrasts with the flawless mirror polishing to the flanks. The flanks are mirror polished to a very good standard, nice curvature to the undercuts, so it wraps around the wrist very well, has a compact lug-to-lug measurement of 44.8, so particularly suitable for collectors with a smaller wrist of 6 to 7 inches. The bezel is also solid 316L grade stainless steel, mirror polished to a flawless standard, and the edge of it is concentric CNC lathe tool machined and also finished to a good standard. No sharp edges to the flat profile to the bezel. I like the way the boxed top hat's K1 hardened mineral glass crystal projects above the flat profile bezel. It does give the piece a vintage aesthetic as per Skindivers from the 1960s, and of course The K1 hardened glass has excellent legibility, and it's not thick as per an acrylic crystal used in the 1960s. So one doesn't get the characteristic distortion and magnification effect when you tilt it at an oblique angle as per a single domed or thick acrylic crystal. This is a double domed K1 hardened glass crystal, so it's curved on the underside, curved on the top side, and that does reduce the distortion and magnification effect. So clarity is very good. Now in terms of the legibility of the dial, again I think they've made a mistake. This is available with two dial versions. One of the versions has a large 12 Arabic numerals and also 6 Arabic numeral, but this one has the decompression table overlaid on the 12 and the 6 Arabic numerals. They've made a mistake here, or one could say they've missed an opportunity, because if you look at the indices, which are printed with C3 Superluminova, you can see we have square indices for the hour marks, which is good, around the circumference of the decompression table, so the legibility is good, the squares are correctly proportioned. But at the 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock positions, you can see the decompression table hides or cuts off the 12 Arabic numerals and the 6 Arabic numeral. This is a mistake. They should have deleted the portion of the 12 and portion of the 6 on the dial and simply made them squares at 6 and squares at 6, squares at 12 and a square at 6, because like the other squares that would add symmetry to it, because one can't see the 12, one can't see the 6, they've just chopped off the portions of it. So this really detracts from the aesthetic look of it and also the functionality of it, because the portion of the 12 and also the portion of the 6 is not clearly legible. On the other version, you can see the full Arabic numerals for the 12 and 6, so it makes sense. But this decompression table version, they should have just deleted the Arabic numeral portions and had squares as per the other indices. So legibility could be improved. Symmetry of the dial is good with the absence of a date complication. The inner rotating bezel is correctly proportioned, the triangle is good, and also the minute ticks are clearly legible. The Arabic numerals are slightly undersized, but I appreciate they've had to fit in the inner rotating bezel beneath this boxed top hat K1 hardened glass crystal, so they've had to make the bezel small enough to fit inside the underside of the crystal, but also large enough to fit around the decompression table. Otherwise, the decompression table Arabic numerals would be too small for the feet and the meters. So it looks okay, symmetry is good, hands are under proportion, but it does have the aesthetic or the look of a 1960s Skindiver. So I'll give you wrist shots and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now, canvas strap is made from nylon and it has a vinyl or PU leather strip in it which reinforces the holes, and the benefit of the strip is that it prevents the tang going through the buckle from fraying. Often with nylon straps, such as NATO straps for example, the tang going through the buckle has a tendency to fray with daily wear and tear the holes in the strap. But by having this PU leather or vinyl strip, which looks like genuine leather but it's actually vinyl, that prevents the holes from elongating and fraying. So that's good attention to detail, good stitching around the edge of it to prevent it becoming undone from the canvas weave nylon strap. The end of it is also welded, and as you can see that prevents it fraying, and we've got stitching around the perimeter, so that's good. It does feel rough, it feels very stiff, and it is thick. Now this is a dive piece, it's clearly meant to be an homage to Skindiver pieces from the 1960s. Dive pieces and homages to them should have rubber straps, they should not have fabric straps because they're going to get wet, and of course fabric straps take longer to dry out. Of course, rubber straps are waterproof, so they make more sense on a dive piece. This canvas nylon strap would be more appropriate on a field watch, not on a dive piece. I think they should stop using these canvas fabric straps and simply use tropic style rubber straps made from silicone rubber, FKM fluoro rubber, or alternatively nitrile butadiene rubber, which are the industry standards. An FKM fluoro rubber strap in a vintage tropic style would enhance this piece, because they were used in the 1960s and 1970s on Skindivers. This straight 20mm fabric strap doesn't suit the piece. Also, the cross-cutting measure of the sterile buckle is a disappointment. So it feels rough, feels stiff, it's not very comfortable, it's not going to break in with daily wear. It's poor quality, and it's unacceptable to have a canvas strap like this on a piece which costs $109 or €94. But with regards to the comfort level and feel good factor of the head of the piece, I like the curved undercut to the flanks. Does have a compact lug to lug measurement, as I've detailed, of 44.8, so particularly suitable for collectors with a smaller wrist of 6 to 7 inches. Does still have enough wrist presence for larger wrists of 7 to 8 inches because it is 38mm, and 38 is suitable for a Skindiver homage because 38 was the kind of size used in the 1960s and 1970s for Skindiver watches. So does look correctly proportioned. I like that it's 13.5. It's not too tall and too thick or top heavy. The thing I like about it is the lack of heft. It is only 70 grams, and that is good. It would be a similar heft on a vintage style Tropic rubber strap, and I think that would look better, but 70 grams is good for 38mm because it feels weightless on wrist. Doesn't feel top heavy, doesn't sit on top of the wrist like a slab of thick 316L grade stainless steel. Nice curvature to the case, and I like the concentric CNC lathe tool machining to it, which gives the tops of the lugs a brushed satin finish, rather like a tonneau case, and tonneau cases were popular in the 1960s. So case shape is good. Proportions of the two crowns, which are coin edge finished, are also good. They don't project too far from the right hand flank, so for example when you flex the wrist they don't dig into the back of the hand, so that's good, but they are large enough to be grippy and tactile and get good purchase on. Just a shame that the lower crown isn't a screw down crown like the top one. The K1 hardened mineral glass is very aesthetically pleasing, does give the look or the aesthetic of a vintage acrylic crystal from the 1960s, but of course it's harder and more scratch resistant. Clarity is better because it doesn't distort and doesn't magnify, so it's good. The AR coating works well. It's just a shame it's not sapphire crystal because that would be harder and more scratch resistant. Proportions are good, comfort level is good, feel good factor is good. Just could be further enhanced if they used a rubber strap, as I've detailed. This canvas strap really is poor quality and a clear cost-cutting measure with a sterile buckle and tang. Right, so let's do a Lume test and we'll see how the Lume performs when it's charged up to the absolute maximum. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to the absolute peak. So this piece uses C3 Super Lume Nova on the baton hands and also on the dial. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, it's okay performance. Now, there's clearly a mismatch in terms of the performance of the exciter on the baton hands and also on the dial. And they've also missed an opportunity again here. Now, I'm going to charge it up again because the camera is struggling to autofocus on it. This is meant to be a dive piece. It's an homage to Skindivers from the 1960s. Now, I appreciate it has an inner rotating bezel rather than an external rotating bezel, but with dive pieces, the Lume pip or triangle on the bezel, regardless of whether it's an external or internal bezel, it should have a lumed pip. And as you can see, this piece does not have a lumed pip. The triangle on the inner rotating bezel doesn't have lume. So one can't see the minute ticks on the bezel and one can't see the triangle. So therefore this defeats or diminishes the purpose of having an inner rotating bezel on the dive piece. You can't use it for timing. The triangle should be lumed with C3 Super Lume Nova. This is an error which is wholly unacceptable regardless of the price point of the piece. A dive bezel should always have a lume pip or alternatively a triangle which is fully lumed, either with C3 or BGW9, but as you can see, the inner rotating bezel has no lume on it whatsoever. Now if you look at the dial, around the circumference of the decompression table, they've lumed the Arabic numerals and also the squares of the indices, but we're clearly looking at 2 to 3 layers or a maximum of 3 to 4 layers of C3 Super Lume Nova. Negligible performance. So I'll charge it up again and you can see how quickly the exciter fades due to the lack of potency. At this price point, and we're talking about $109 which is €94 respectively, the industry standard is 5 to 6 layers, regardless of whether it's C3 or BGW9 Super Lume Nova. It has to be 5 to 6 layers. To put this into perspective, Steel Dive are producing the Steel Dive SD 1953 and retailing it at €80 price point. That has 5 to 6 layers of BGW9 on a fully lumed ceramic bezel insert, the dial and Mercedes handset at €80. So it is possible for low-tier Chinese brands to do it below 80 at the €80 price point. This is $109 or €94. Now, as you can see, initially the exciter does look like it has potency, but it quickly fades to nothing because you can see it's 2 to 3 or 3 to 4 on the dial around the circumference of the decompression table. So there are two circles which are lumed, they're fading quickly to nothing. The square indices around the circumference of the decompression table are fading to nothing. Baton hands have better performance, so I think what we're looking at is 2 to 3 layers on the dial, 3 to 4 layers on the baton hands. But you can again see the problem with the hands being too short and stubby, and they're not wide enough because they don't allow for a large area or large plots for 5 to 6 layers of C3 to be applied. Disappointing performance, wholly unacceptable, and this is a main negative of the watch I want you to be aware of. Right, so let's discuss the movement used. So this is powered by the Merkur Caliber M01D, which is a manual wind mechanical movement rather than an automatic with a rotor. It's made in-house by Merkur in Peking in China. It's a reliable, well-proven workhorse manual wind movement, has 17 joules, runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 3 Hz. The negative of it running at 3 Hz is that the white second-hand stutters or judders around the dial, as per an NH35A, which also runs at 3 Hz, for example. I personally prefer automatic movements and mechanical movements to run at 4 Hz because 4 Hz gives a nice smooth sweep to the second hand rather than the stutter or judder of a 3 Hz sweep. But this is subjective. I appreciate for the majority of collectors a 3 Hz stutter or judder to the second hand isn't detrimental. So 21,600 vibrations per hour, frequency of 3 Hz, has hand winding, 40 full clockwise turns of the lower crown will fully wind it to its maximum 42-hour power reserve. Doesn't have hacking, as I've demonstrated in the time setting position. When you pull out the crown to the time setting position, the second hand continues to sweep around the dial. The lack of hacking is a negative if you like to set the time precisely to the second, something I want you to be aware of. Stated accuracy is plus or minus 25 seconds per day, so a rather wide accuracy range. Now I want to clarify something about the Caliber M01D. When it's fully wound to its maximum 42-hour power reserve, it performs best, which is a given for all mechanical movements, regardless of whether they are manual wind or automatic. When a mainspring is fully wound to its maximum, the movement performs most accurately. When the mainspring unwinds, and therefore the power reserve depletes, the accuracy runs wider, it runs out. So for example, when this is fully wound, it will run between plus or minus 25 seconds per day, which is not very accurate. But when it depletes, for example, when it's below 20 hours and below 10 hours, the accuracy can run out wider. Now, this one is running consistently at plus 10 when it's fully wound. But when it's running at 20 hours power reserve, 10 hours power reserve, etc., the accuracy then goes out to plus or minus 15, then plus or minus 25, then plus or minus 30 seconds per day. So you can see the negative, the main problem with the M01D. It is reliable. It's a well-proven workhorse mechanical movement, but the negative is it's not very accurate. So it's durable, it's robust, they do not fail, but they're not very accurate. You have to keep them topped up to 42 hours, their maximum, to get the best accuracy. This will run consistently at plus 10 at 42 hours, but once it gets down to 20 hours or 10 hours, it will be plus 25, for example, or minus 25. That is the negative. So lack of hacking is a negative, lack of accuracy is a negative. These are the things I want you to be mindful of. The benefit is it's thinner than an automatic, and although this does have a 2mm thick box top hat K1 hardened glass crystal, it still is only 13.5, so it does sit snug to the wrist, doesn't have a large gap, doesn't have a bubble back case back. So for example, if you have a smaller wrist of 6 to 7 inches, you'll enjoy it being compact because it's only 44.8 and 13.5 isn't too thick. 13mm is the sweet spot to fit underneath a shirt cuff, and at 13.5 it will still just fit underneath a shirt cuff, so that's good. So last I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch should meet 2 criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So you can use the discount code MERKURWATCH088. That will reduce the price from $129 down to $109, which is €94 respectively. So I'm going to evaluate the piece based on the discounted price of €94. I'm going to declare it OK quality, and I'm going to declare it OK value at €94. I can't say it's good quality and I can't say it's good value, and I certainly can't say excellent quality and excellent value because there are too many shortcomings. The canvas strap is a clear cost-cutting measure. This strip is made from vinyl or PU leather, it's not genuine leather, and of course cost-cutting measure of sterile buckle should be signed with Merkur. Should be an FKM fluoro rubber or nitrile butadiene tropic style rubber strap with a signed buckle. That would enhance it. The other cost-cutting measure is the use of a push-pull crown for the lower crown rather than a screw-down crown. wholly unacceptable. The hands are undersized, and of course the main negative, which I showed you in the Lume test, which I repeated, is the 2 to 3 layers of C3 Super Luminova on the dial and the 3 to 4 layers on the baton hands. It's not acceptable. Has to be 5 to 6 layers at the €94 price point. Lack of C3 Super Luminova on the triangle on the inner rotating bezel. Again, missed opportunity. This is an error. So these are the kind of cost-cutting measures used by Merkur in order to reduce production cost per piece and therefore maximise profit margin per piece at €94. It's wholly unacceptable. I appreciate it does have an in-house calibre, which is made by Merkur, and they deserve credit for that. The M01D is made by Merkur. They don't buy it in. I think that even though it does have an in-house calibre, the lack of hacking and the lack of accuracy are negatives. And they really reduce my rating of it from good quality and good value down to okay quality and okay value. So there are some shortcomings. On a positive note, the quality of the finishing to the head of the piece, the case back are good, and also the crown, all good. So quality of the finishing is good. The legibility of the dial is good, even though the hands are under proportion. The clarity of the K1 hardened glass is good. But again, we've got the cost-cutting measure of K1 hardened glass. Should be sapphire crystal with AR coating at the €94 price point. So what we're looking at is cost-cutting measure after cost-cutting measure, and too many cost-cutting measures. The C3 Super Luminova is the biggest disappointment of this piece. Wholly unacceptable at €94. The reason why I say it's wholly unacceptable is, as I've detailed, Steel Dive with the SD1953 is €80. It's a Submariner Datamage. That has 5 to 6 layers of BGW9. Stellar performance at €80. This is €94 and it doesn't have it. So that's the reason why I downgrade it. So I'm going to recommend it to you for consideration, but bear in mind the shortcomings. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.